Unaware the wife he divorced was the secret owner of the $300 billion company his mistress worked for, he returned with a lawyer demanding his share. After he kicked her out to marry his rich, arrogant mistress, what she revealed in court left him begging and bankrupt. He thought throwing her out was the beginning of his new life. For 12 years, Adrian Cross treated his wife, Selene, like she was ordinary, too quiet, too simple, too easy to replace. So when his glamorous mistress, Vanessa, convinced him she was his ticket into a richer, more powerful world, Adrian signed the divorce papers, tossed Selene's clothes onto the curb, and married the woman who never stopped bragging about her position at a $300 million company. But there was one secret Vanessa didn't know. Selene owned it. Not a small piece, not a hidden investment, the entire empire. Months later, after discovering Selene's name connected to the company, Adrian returned with an expensive lawyer and a greedy demand, half of everything she had hidden from him. Vanessa arrived in court smiling, certain her new husband was about to become richer than ever. Then Selene stood up, calm, silent, unshaken. And as her attorney placed one sealed document before the judge, Adrian's confidence cracked. Because what Selene revealed wasn't just proof of ownership. It was proof of betrayal, fraud, and a clause Adrian had signed without reading, the same clause that would leave him begging for mercy and walking out bankrupt. For the first time since their marriage ended, Adrian looked at Selene as if he had never seen her before. Not as the quiet woman who brewed his coffee before dawn, not as the wife who sat beside him at charity dinners, smiling gently while he took credit for every clever idea she had whispered into his ear, not as the woman he dismissed whenever she asked questions about his business, his late nights, or the strange lipstick marks he called nothing. He looked at her as a threat. Selene did not smile, she did not gloat. She simply turned one page in the file before her and waited while the courtroom absorbed what her lawyer had just said. Judge Helena Murray leaned forward, her glasses resting low on her nose. "Mr. Cross," she said, her voice sharp enough to slice through the tense silence, "are you stating that you were unaware your former wife owned Vera Dynamics at the time of your divorce?" Adrian's lawyer, Mr. Blake, rose quickly. "Your Honor, my client maintains that Mrs. Cross." "Ms. Vale," Selene's attorney corrected calmly. "My client legally returned to her maiden name 3 days after the divorce was finalized." Mr. Blake's jaw tightened. Ms. Vale deliberately concealed substantial marital assets. Selene finally lifted her eyes. Adrian hated how calm she was. He wanted anger, tears, trembling hands, anything that would prove she was still the woman he had tossed aside. But the woman across the aisle wore a cream suit, her hair pulled into a smooth knot, her posture straight and still. She looked less like a deserted wife and more like a woman who had been waiting for this moment with absolute patience. "My client did not conceal anything," Selene's attorney, Clara Renwick, said. "Vera Dynamics was created using inheritance funds from the Vale Family Trust 6 years before her marriage to Mr. Cross. The company was protected under a prenuptial agreement that Mr. Cross signed voluntarily after independent counsel reviewed it." Adrian's stomach dropped. Vanessa, seated beside him, snapped her head toward him. Her polished smile flickered. "You signed a prenup," she whispered. Adrian ignored her. He remembered the document vaguely, a stack of papers before the wedding. Selene's father had insisted. Adrian, young and ambitious, had laughed with his friends about it afterward. "What could she possibly have that I'd want?" he had said. "Her grandmother's teacups." Back then, Selene dressed in soft sweaters and plain skirts. She drove an old blue sedan. She clipped coupons, cooked at home, and refused expensive jewelry. Her parents lived modestly in a quiet house with ivy over the porch. Nothing about them screamed wealth. That had been the point. Clara Renwick slid a copy of the prenuptial agreement across the table. Section 9 states that any company, asset, investment, trust interest, patent, licensing agreement, or revenue stream existing before marriage remains separate property. Section 12 states that if either party attempts to claim separate property through false accusation, intimidation, or fraudulent filings, the party forfeits any unresolved spousal claims and accepts liability for legal fees. Judge Murray looked at Adrian. "Did you read this before signing?" Adrian's face flushed. "I had a lawyer." "Answer the question." He swallowed. "I signed what was put in front of me." A murmur moved through the courtroom. Vanessa's hand slipped from his arm. Clara continued, "Your Honor, Mr. Cross is not merely attempting to reopen a divorce settlement. He has filed sworn statements claiming Ms. Vale hid marital income and misled him about her assets. Those statements are demonstrably false." Mr. Blake shot to his feet. "We dispute that." "Then you will appreciate the next exhibit," Clara replied. She opened the sealed folder. Adrian could feel the shift in the room before he understood it. Reporters leaned forward. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. Mr. Blake's confidence thinned into caution. Clara lifted a document. "This is an internal Vera Dynamics compliance report. It shows that Vanessa Wren, now Vanessa Cross, accessed confidential ownership records 2 weeks before Mr. Cross filed his claim. She did so using another employee's credentials." Vanessa's mouth fell open. "That is a lie." Clara did not look at her. The report further shows that Mrs. Cross then forwarded screenshots of those records to Adrian Cross, along with messages encouraging him to pursue Ms. Vale for a financial settlement. Adrian went cold. Vanessa gripped the table. "I didn't know she owned it. I only saw her name attached to some old documents." Selene turned to Vanessa then, and for the first time her expression changed. Not to hatred, not even anger. "Pity." "You saw enough," Selene said quietly. Vanessa's face hardened. "You hid behind everyone. You let people think you were nobody." "No," Selene replied. "You decided that quiet meant weak. That was your mistake." Judge Murray struck her gavel once. "Order." Adrian felt his lawyer lean close. "Do not speak unless I tell you to." But Adrian was already unraveling. His entire plan had been simple: humiliate Selene, force a settlement, use the scandal to pressure her into paying rather than letting the world see that she had hidden a fortune from her husband. He had imagined walking out richer. He had imagined Vanessa clinging to him with renewed admiration. He had imagined Selene cornered, exposed, and regretful. Instead, it was his name being linked to fraud. Clara produced another page. "We also have evidence that Mr. Cross transferred funds from the marital account to Ms. Wren during the marriage, disguised as consulting payments through a shell vendor." Adrian's lawyer went pale. "Your Honor, this is beyond the scope of today's hearing." "It became relevant when your client accused mine of financial deception," Clara said. Judge Murray's gaze sharpened. "I will allow it." Selene sat motionless while the payments were read aloud. $30,000, $75,000, $110,000. Each transfer was dated. Each one matched a period when Adrian had told Selene his company was struggling and asked her to tighten things at home. She had cancelled vacations, sold jewelry he never noticed, and cooked cheaper meals while he sent money to the woman who later laughed over champagne in Vera's executive lounge. Vanessa stared at Adrian. "You told me that was bonus money." Adrian hissed, "Not now." But Vanessa was no longer smiling. Clara's voice remained measured. Mr. Cross claimed in his sworn affidavit that Ms. Vale contributed nothing meaningful to his personal business, Crossmark Strategies. "We have emails showing that she drafted investor decks, negotiated vendor terms, and prepared pitch notes under his name." "That was marriage," Adrian snapped before he could stop himself. "Wives help their husbands." Selene's head turned slowly. The courtroom stilled. Judge Murray said, "Mr. Cross, you will control yourself." But the damage was done. Every reporter in the back row had heard him. Clara waited a beat, then said, "Yes, Ms. Vale helped her husband, repeatedly, quietly, without claiming compensation. and when he ended the marriage, she accepted the settlement as written and walked away. Mr. Cross was the one who returned. Adrian pressed his palms against the table. He could not look at Selene. The woman he had called ordinary had owned the building where Vanessa worked. The company Vanessa used as proof of her importance belonged to the wife he had mocked. It made no sense, and yet the evidence sat in front of everyone. Judge Murray reviewed the documents in silence. A clock ticked on the wall. Adrian heard each second like a hammer. Finally, the judge looked up. Mr. Cross, your petition to reopen the divorce settlement is denied. The court finds insufficient basis for your claim that Ms. Vale concealed marital property. Further, given the prenuptial agreement and the evidence presented today, the court will consider sanctions, attorney fees, and referral for investigation regarding possible false statements and improper acquisition of corporate records. Vanessa made a small, frightened sound. Adrian's lawyer whispered something urgent, but Adrian barely heard him. Denied. Sanctions. Investigation. Those words did not belong in his victory scene. Judge Murray continued, Ms. Renwick, file your motion for fees by Friday. I will also issue a protective order preventing further harassment of Ms. Vale regarding these assets. Clara nodded, thank you, Your Honor. The gavel came down. For a moment, no one moved. Then the courtroom erupted. Reporters stood. Cameras flashed outside the glass doors. Vanessa grabbed her handbag, her heels sharp against the floor as she turned away from Adrian. Mr. Blake gathered his papers with the stiff efficiency of a man already planning how to distance himself from a sinking client. Adrian remained seated. Selene stood. He watched her button her suit jacket, lift her handbag, and speak softly to Clara. She did not glance at him. That hurt more than rage would have. Selene, he said. She paused, but only because he had stepped into her path. Her attorney moved closer. Mr. Cross, I advise you not to approach my client. Adrian ignored her. I didn't know. Selene looked at him. That was always your excuse. I didn't know who you were. No, she said, you knew exactly who I was. You just thought it wasn't enough. He flinched. Outside the courtroom, reporters shouted questions. Ms. Vale, is it true you founded Vera Dynamics? Mr. Cross, did you know about the company during your marriage? Mrs. Cross, did you access confidential files? Vanessa pushed through them, her face hidden behind oversized sunglasses. Adrian reached for her, but she jerked away. Don't, she snapped. You made me look like an idiot. You were the one who found the documents, Adrian said. And you were the one who thought you could steal from your ex-wife. Her voice trembled, but not with sadness, with fury. You told me she was pathetic. Adrian glanced toward Selene. She stood at the courthouse steps with Clara, sunlight catching the edge of her face. A black car waited near the curb, its driver holding the door open. She looked composed, untouchable, and painfully familiar. There had been a time when he had come home exhausted and found her waiting with soup on the stove. A time when she remembered every investor's name, every allergy, every deadline he forgot. A time when her hand on his shoulder had steadied him. He had mistaken support for simplicity. He had mistaken kindness for lack of power. Selene, he called again. This time she did not stop. She stepped into the car, and the door closed between them. By evening, the story was everywhere. Billionaire founder revealed in bitter divorce case. Corporate executive accused of accessing confidential ownership records. Ex-husband's claim backfires in court. Adrian sat in his apartment, watching his face appear on every business channel. Vanessa had not come home. Their wedding photo still sat on the side table, glossy and ridiculous. She had insisted on a gold-framed portrait from their destination wedding in Santorini, though Adrian had privately hated the cost. He stared at it now and saw the truth. Vanessa had not married him because he was powerful. She had married the version of him she believed would become powerful. He had done the same to her. Each had mistaken the other for a shortcut. His phone buzzed non-stop. Investors withdrawing. Clients pausing contracts. His accountant requesting an urgent call. His mother leaving tearful messages about reporters outside her home. And then one text from Vanessa. "We need space. My lawyer will contact you." Adrian laughed once, dry and bitter. Her lawyer. Everyone had lawyers now. The next morning, Crossmark Strategies lost its largest client. By noon, 2 more suspended their contracts. By 3, his bank called about the business line of credit, asking whether the pending legal issues would affect repayment. By Friday, Clara Renwick filed for legal fees and sanctions. The amount made Adrian dizzy. He tried calling Selene every day for a week. She never answered. On the 8th day, he went to Vera Dynamics. The headquarters stood in the center of the city, a tower of blue glass and steel. He had been there only once before, to take Vanessa to lunch. Back then, he had strutted through the lobby, amused by the young employees rushing past with badges and laptops. He remembered thinking it was exactly the kind of place Vanessa belonged. Now he saw Selene everywhere. Not literally, but in the design. The lobby was elegant without being loud. Clean lines, warm lighting, art from local students on the walls. A coffee bar where employees greeted the barista by name. A plaque near the elevators read, "Vera Dynamics Innovation Fund. Founded to build tools that serve people before profit." Adrian stared at the words. Serve people before profit. Selene had always said that. At dinner parties, Adrian had dismissed it as soft idealism. Profit keeps the lights on, he would say, and people would laugh because he said it loudly enough. The receptionist looked up. "May I help you?" "I'm here to see Selene Vale." "Do you have an appointment?" "No, tell her Adrian Cross is here." The receptionist's pleasant expression faded into professional caution. "Ms. Vale is unavailable." "She'll see me." "I'm afraid she won't." Adrian leaned closer. "Listen, I'm her ex-husband." "Yes, Mr. Cross," the receptionist said. "That is why security has already been notified." 2 guards appeared before Adrian could reply. Humiliation burned through him. "I just need 5 minutes." A voice behind him said, "You've had 12 years." He turned. Selene stood near the elevators. She wore charcoal trousers and a pale blue blouse, simple and graceful, no diamonds, no dramatic entrance, yet the entire lobby seemed to shift around her. Employees noticed her and straightened, not from fear, but respect. "Selene," he said, hurrying toward her. The guards moved, but she raised a hand. "It's all right." Adrian stopped a few feet away. "Please, I need to talk to you." "You need to talk because the court did not give you what you wanted." "I made mistakes." "Yes." "I was angry. Vanessa pushed me." She found the documents and said. Selene's eyes hardened. "Do not blame another woman for your choices. That habit is part of what brought you here." Adrian looked around. People were pretending not to watch. "Can we speak privately?" "No." "Selene, please." The words sounded strange from him. Pleading had never suited Adrian Cross. Selene studied him for a long moment. "You came to my workplace after being told not to contact me about my assets. That was unwise." "I didn't come for money." "Then why are you here?" He had rehearsed answers in the car. Apologies, explanations, memories, but standing before her, he could not make them sound true. "My company is collapsing," he admitted. "That is not my emergency." "You could stop it. One statement from you, just say I didn't know, say it was a misunderstanding." "It was not a misunderstanding." Adrian's voice dropped. "I'll lose everything." Selene nodded faintly. "That is what happens when everything is built on image." His face twisted. That's easy for you to say. You had a secret empire. I had years of work you never cared to notice. I was your husband. And I was your wife, she said, yet you believed I had no inner life beyond serving yours. The words struck him harder than he expected. She continued, quiet but firm. I founded Vera after my grandfather died. He left me patents, seed capital, and one instruction: build something useful and never let anyone love you for the wrong reason. So I lived modestly. I worked through holding companies. I tested people. Maybe that was unfair, but you had 12 years to ask who I was. You never did. Adrian swallowed. I asked about your day, he said weakly. No, you asked whether dinner was ready, whether your suit had been cleaned, whether I had remembered the name of your client's wife. You asked for convenience, not truth. He looked away. The lobby was silent now. Even the security guards seemed uncomfortable. Selene softened, but only slightly. Adrian, I did love you. That is the part I regret most. Not because love is shameful, but because I used it as an excuse to make myself smaller. I loved you too. No, she said. You loved being loved by me. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Because he could not deny it quickly enough. Selene turned to the receptionist. Please inform legal that Mr. Cross came here despite the pending order. Adrian panicked. Don't do that. I will not have you disrupting my employees. Selene, I'm begging you. She faced him one final time. Begging is not accountability. Start there. Then she walked past him into the elevator. The doors closed. Adrian stood in the lobby of the company he had tried to claim, surrounded by people who knew exactly who he was, and felt smaller than Selene had ever been. The next blow came from Vanessa. Her divorce petition arrived on a rainy Tuesday. She claimed emotional distress, reputational harm, and financial deception. Adrian read the papers twice, then threw them across the room. 3 months earlier, Vanessa had called Selene a boring little houseplant at a private dinner. Adrian had laughed. Now Vanessa's petition described Adrian as manipulative, reckless, and dishonest. He called her immediately. She answered on the 5th ring. What do you want? You're divorcing me. You're toxic to my career. Your career, Adrian nearly choked. You may be fired for stealing confidential records. I didn't steal. I accessed information relevant to a personal legal matter. That sounds like something your lawyer wrote. Unlike you, I listened to my lawyer. Adrian paced the apartment. You pushed me to file. I showed you what I found. You made your decision. You said we could get millions. Vanessa fell silent. Then she said, and you believed me because you wanted to. It was almost exactly what Selene had said. Adrian hated them both for being right. Vera suspended Vanessa pending investigation. 2 weeks later, she was terminated for violating company data policies. Her industry friends stopped inviting her to events. Her social media went quiet. The glossy life she had displayed so proudly began to peel at the corners. But Vanessa had one skill Adrian lacked. She knew when to abandon a sinking ship. By the time the court ordered Adrian to pay Selene's legal fees and sanctioned him for false claims, Vanessa had moved into a serviced apartment under her maiden name and begun pitching herself to smaller firms as a whistleblower, caught in a powerful woman's revenge campaign. Nobody important believed her. Adrian sold his car first. Then the watch Selene had given him on their 5th anniversary. It had sat in a velvet box for years because he thought it too understated. Now it paid 1 month of legal bills. Then the apartment went on the market. He moved into a rented place above a dry cleaner where the heat rattled and the windows faced a brick wall. Every morning he woke before dawn, not because of ambition, but because anxiety pulled him out of sleep. Crossmark Strategies filed for bankruptcy protection 6 months after the hearing. The news cycle had moved on by then. but the stain remained. Clients searched his name and found headlines. Investors stopped taking meetings. Former employees wrote careful posts about difficult leadership cultures and credit not always going where it belonged. Adrian told himself they were cowards. Then one night, he found an old flash drive in a box of files from the penthouse. It was labeled in Cellini's neat handwriting. Crossmark Pitch Revisions 2018. He plugged it into his laptop. Folder after folder opened. Investor deck. Market analysis. Brand strategy. Speech draft. Acquisition proposal. All edited by Cellini. He sat there for hours, reading comments in the margins. Adrian, this claim needs evidence. Stronger opening if you laid with customer pain. Numbers on slide 7 do not match appendix. Remember to thank Mara, she introduced you to their CFO. He remembered that pitch. It had landed Crossmark its biggest early client. He had celebrated that night by going out with investors while Cellini stayed home with a migraine. He had returned after midnight, drunk on praise. You were incredible, she had told him. He had kissed her forehead and said, we are finally getting somewhere. We. He had used the word then. Later, when the money came, he switched to I. I built this. I sacrificed. I carried us. The flash drive sat warm in his palm. For the first time, Adrian understood that he had not lost everything in court. He had lost it slowly, year by year, every time Cellini offered him something genuine and he filed it under obligation. Meanwhile, Cellini rebuilt the parts of her life that had nothing to do with him. She moved back into the old Vale house for a while, the one with ivy over the porch and uneven stones along the garden path. Her mother, Elise, made tea without asking questions. Her father, Malcolm, repaired a loose cabinet door and pretended not to notice when Cellini cried quietly in the kitchen at midnight. You don't have to be strong here, her mother told her. Cellini wiped her face. I'm tired of people thinking strength means never breaking. Then break honestly, Elise said, and heal honestly too. At Vera, she stopped hiding behind layers of corporate structure. The board had known her, of course, so had a handful of senior leaders, but most employees knew only that a private trust owned the controlling stake. After the court case, Cellini held an all-hands meeting. She walked onto the auditorium stage without music, without dramatic lighting, without the polished theatrics Vanessa would have adored. I owe you honesty, she told her employees. Many of you learned my identity through headlines. That is not how I wanted this to happen. I valued privacy so deeply that I let distance grow between myself and the people building this company every day. That changes now. No one spoke. She continued. Vera was founded to create technology that helps small businesses use data without being exploited by it. That mission remains, but culture matters as much as product, and from this day forward, no one at this company gets to use power as a mask. The room stayed silent for one breath. Then someone began clapping. Others joined. Within seconds, the auditorium filled with applause, not wild, not worshipful, but steady, respectful. Cellini stood under the lights and felt something inside her loosen. Afterward, employees lined up to speak with her. Some were nervous, some cried. One engineer admitted that Vanessa had bullied junior staff and taken credit for their work. A product manager said she had almost quit because leadership seemed untouchable. Cellini listened to every word. Then she acted. Vera launched an internal ethics office reporting directly to the board. Promotion reviews were audited. Anonymous complaints were reopened. Managers attended new leadership training, not the empty corporate kind with slogans and pastries, but real sessions about accountability, documentation, and power. The company did not collapse under scrutiny. It improved. 6 months later, Vera announced a new platform for small retailers. Revenue climbed. The press began writing about Cellini not as the secret wife in a scandal, but as a founder who had turned personal betrayal into corporate reform. She disliked that framing. Betrayal had not made her brilliant. Betrayal had only forced the world to notice what had already been there. One afternoon, Clara visited Cellini's office with a folder and 2 coffees. "The bankruptcy trustee has finalized the Crossmark asset review," Clara said. Cellini took 1 coffee and, "Your legal fees will be paid from the liquidation, though not all at once. There is also the matter of the consulting transfers to Vanessa. The trustee may pursue recovery." Cellini looked out the window. Her office overlooked the city river. Sunlight broke across the water in silver fragments. "I don't care about the money," she said. "I know, but accountability often comes with invoices." Cellini smiled faintly. "You enjoy your work too much." "I enjoy bullies meeting paperwork." That made Cellini laugh. Then Clara's expression gentled. "There's something else. Adrian's attorney reached out. He wants mediation." "No. You didn't ask why." "I know why. He is out of options." Clara nodded. "Most likely." Cellini turned from the window. "For years, I waited for him to choose decency without consequence, forcing him to. He never did. I'm not interested in giving him a stage for regret." Clara closed the folder. "I'll decline." "Thank you." But that night, Cellini did not sleep easily. Not because she wanted Adrian back. That door had not merely closed, it had become a wall, but grief was strange. It could survive even after love changed shape. She mourned the woman she had been with him, the woman who waited, explained, softened, forgave, and hoped. She mourned the years spent shrinking in a beautiful home that had never felt fully hers. At 2 in the morning, she went downstairs and found her father in the kitchen eating toast. "Couldn't sleep?" Malcolm asked. "No." He pushed the plate toward her. "Toast helps nothing, but it gives you something to do." She sat across from him. For a while, they ate in silence. Then Cellini said, "Did you ever think I was foolish for marrying him?" Malcolm sighed, "Yes." She looked up. He shrugged. "You asked." A laugh escaped her. "But," he continued, "I also thought you were brave. You wanted to be loved without the armor of the veil name. That isn't foolish, it's human." "I hid too much." "Maybe, but Adrian didn't need a balance sheet to treat you well." Cellini absorbed that. Her father reached across the table and covered her hand with his. "Don't turn his failure into your life sentence." In the weeks that followed, Cellini began doing small things she had once avoided. She bought a red coat simply because she liked it. She took meetings without pretending to be an assistant or advisor. She accepted an award in her own name. She invited employees to challenge her in strategy reviews, and when they did, she thanked them. She also visited the penthouse one final time. The buyer had delayed closing, and a few of her belongings remained in storage there. Adrian had left the place stripped and echoing, all its expensive furniture sold or removed. The rooms looked smaller without performance filling them. Cellini walked through the living room where Adrian had once told her she was not built for high society. She passed the dining room where Vanessa had sat at her table, wearing Cellini's favorite shade of lipstick, praising Adrian for being ready to upgrade his life. In the bedroom closet, Cellini found a scarf she had forgotten, pale green silk, folded behind a drawer. She held it for a moment, remembering the night Adrian gave it to her after missing their anniversary dinner. He had not chosen it, his assistant had. Cellini left it on the counter. Some things did not need to be reclaimed. As she stepped into the hallway, she heard someone call her name. Adrian stood near the elevator. For one startled second, she saw the old version of him, sharp suit, perfect hair, confident smile. Then reality settled. His coat was worn at the cuffs. His face was thinner. He looked older than his years, not from poverty alone, but from resentment curdling into exhaustion. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I knew the realtor was showing the place today. I thought you might come." "That is not comforting. I just want to talk." "You keep saying that." "Because you never let me." Selene pressed the elevator button. "I am allowed to refuse access to myself." He winced. "I deserved that." She said nothing. He took a breath. "I found the old pitch files." That made her pause. "All the work you did," he continued. "All the things I took credit for, I didn't remember it that way, or maybe I didn't want to." The elevator numbers descended slowly. Selene kept her eyes on them. "I'm not asking for money," he said. "I'm not asking you to save me. I know you won't." "No," she said, "I won't." "I know," his voice cracked. "I just need to say I'm sorry." The elevator doors opened. Selene did not step inside. Adrian looked at her with wet eyes, but she could not tell whether they came from remorse or fear. Perhaps both. People were rarely only one thing. "I am sorry," he said, "for Vanessa, for the lawsuit, for the years before that, for making you feel small because I was terrified I wasn't big enough. I thought if people saw you clearly, they'd see me less, so I kept dimming you." Selene's throat tightened despite herself. That was the closest he had ever come to truth. "I can't fix it," he said. "No," she replied, "you can't." "I know. And apologizing does not earn forgiveness." "I know that too." She stuttered him. For years she had imagined an apology from Adrian. In those fantasies, it healed something. It proved she had mattered. It rewrote the past. Standing there now, she realized an apology could not reach backward. It could only mark the place where denial ended. "I accept that you are sorry," she said carefully. "I do not accept you back into my life." He nodded, tears slipping down his face. "I hope," she added, "that one day you become someone who does not need to lose everything before learning how to value anything." The words landed between them. Then she stepped into the elevator. This time, Adrian did not follow. A year after the court hearing, Selene returned to the courthouse, not as a defendant, not as a woman being dragged into someone else's greed, but as a witness in a corporate misconduct case involving Vanessa. The investigation had unfolded slowly. Vanessa had not only accessed Selene's ownership records, she had manipulated internal performance reports to secure bonuses and undermine rivals. Several former employees came forward. The case became less about Selene and more about a pattern of ambition without ethics. Vanessa arrived in a grey suit, her hair cut shorter, her confidence sharpened into defiance. When she saw Selene in the hallway, she smiled coldly. "You must be enjoying this," Vanessa said. Selene looked at her. "No. Don't pretend you're above it." "I'm not above anger. I'm past letting it guide me." Vanessa laughed. "Easy to say when you win." Selene moved closer, not threatening, simply present. "You thought winning meant taking what belonged to someone else and calling it proof that you were better. That is why you lost." Vanessa's expression flickered. "You don't know me," she snapped. "I know enough. I know you were talented. I know you could have built something real. Instead, you chose shortcuts." For a second, Vanessa looked almost young, almost uncertain. Then the mask returned. "Spare me the founder wisdom." Selene nodded, gladly. She walked away without looking back. In court, Selene testified clearly. She did not exaggerate. She did not insult Vanessa. She answered questions, described company policy, confirmed the access logs, and stepped down. The outcome was not dramatic in the way tabloids wanted. Vanessa avoided prison but received penalties, probationary restrictions, and a professional ban from handling sensitive corporate data for a set period. It was enough to change the path of her life. Outside, reporters shouted again. This time, Selene did not hide. Miss Vale, do you feel vindicated? She paused at the courthouse steps. I feel responsible, she said. Power only means something if it protects people who have less of it. Vera failed some employees by allowing harmful behavior to continue too long. We corrected that, and we will keep correcting it. Do you have any message for Adrian Cross? Selini's face remained calm. No. That one word became a headline too. But for Selini, it was not cold, it was freedom. Adrian saw the interview from the break room of a small logistics company where he now worked as a client coordinator. It was not glamorous, his desk was shared. The coffee was terrible, his boss was 28 and unimpressed by his old stories. At first, Adrian hated the job. He hated taking instructions, hated being corrected, hated that no one cared he had once attended dinners with venture capitalists and mayors. Then slowly, the hatred tired him. He began arriving early. He stopped mentioning Crossmark. He learned the software. He apologized to a junior colleague after snapping at her over a spreadsheet. She stared at him in surprise, then nodded. It was not redemption, not yet, maybe not ever. It was simply the first honest work he had done in years. When Selini appeared on the break room television, one coworker said, "She's impressive." Adrian looked at the screen. Selini stood at the courthouse steps in a navy coat, wind lifting a loose strand of hair against her cheek. She looked older than the woman he had married, but brighter, not because she had won, because she no longer waited for permission to exist. "Yes," Adrian said quietly, "she is." His coworker glanced at him. "You know her." Adrian took a slow breath. Once he would have said, "She's my ex-wife," as though that explained her in relation to him. Now he said, "I used to," and turned back to his work. 2 years passed. Vera Dynamics crossed a new valuation milestone, not because of scandal, but because its products worked. Selini expanded the company's small business grants, funded scholarships for women in engineering, and created a founder residency for entrepreneurs from overlooked communities. At the opening ceremony for the residency, she stood in a renovated warehouse filled with young founders, local officials, engineers, and families. Her parents sat in the front row. Clara stood near the back, pretending not to get emotional. Selini stepped to the microphone. "When I founded Vera," she began, "I thought privacy would protect me. In some ways, it did. But I also learned that hiding your power does not always keep you safe. Sometimes it only makes it easier for others to underestimate your boundaries." The audience listened. I don't believe every wound needs to become a lesson for public consumption. Some pain is simply pain. But I do believe we can choose what grows around it, not because betrayal is useful, but because we are. Applause rose. Selini smiled. After the ceremony, a young woman approached her, clutching a notebook to her chest. "Ms. Vale, Selini is fine." The woman looked nervous. "I just wanted to say I read about what happened, not the gossip parts, the real parts. I was in a relationship where I kept making myself smaller because I thought that was love. Seeing you rebuild helped me leave." Selini felt the words settle deep in her chest. "What's your name?" she asked. "Maya." "Maya," Selini said gently, "I'm glad you chose yourself." The young woman's eyes filled. She nodded and hurried away. Clara appeared beside Selini. That was worth 100 headlines. Selini smiled, at least. Later that evening, after everyone left, Selini walked alone through the building. The residency space smelled of fresh paint, coffee, and new furniture. Desks waited for ideas. Conference rooms waited for arguments and breakthroughs. Whiteboards waited for impossible plans. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. For a moment, old tension returned. Then she read it. "Selini, I heard about the residency opening. Congratulations. I won't contact you again after this. I just wanted to say you built something good, and I'm sorry I ever made you feel like it was nothing. Adrian. Selene stared at the message for a long time. Then she deleted it. Not because she was angry. Because she did not need to carry every apology. Outside, the city glittered. Selene stepped onto the sidewalk. Her driver waited near the curb, but she waved him off. The night was cool, and she wanted to walk. For years, she had moved through the world quietly to avoid being seen for the wrong reasons. Then she had been seen for the worst reasons. Now, finally, she was learning to be seen simply as herself. A woman with power. A woman with scars. A woman who had loved unwisely, lost painfully, fought cleanly, and risen without becoming cruel. At a crosswalk, she caught her reflection in a dark shop window. There was no crown, no dramatic symbol of victory, just Selene Vale in a red coat, hands in her pockets, eyes steady. She thought of the day Adrian had thrown her clothes onto the curb, the suitcase with the broken wheel, the neighbors pretending not to watch, Vanessa's laughter from inside the penthouse, Adrian's cold voice telling her she would thank him one day for freeing her from a life she could never keep up with. Back then, Selene had stood on the sidewalk, with rain soaking through her blouse, feeling as if the world had narrowed to one unbearable point. She wished she could go back to that woman for just a minute. Not to warn her, not to erase the pain. Only to whisper, "Keep walking." The light changed. Selene crossed the street with the crowd, disappearing into the bright, restless city she had helped shape. And somewhere far behind her, Adrian Cross remained exactly where his choices had left him, not destroyed by Selene, not ruined by revenge, but finally face to face with the truth he had spent 12 years avoiding. He had thrown away a wife and chased a fantasy. He had demanded a share of an empire he never helped build. He had mistaken silence for weakness, loyalty for foolishness, and love for something he could spend until it ran out. But Selene had never been ordinary. She had only been waiting for the day she no longer needed to prove it.